Somewhere in America right now, a phone is sitting on a kitchen table and a family is scared to answer it. That is real life for 18 families this year. 18 U.S. service members have died since this war started, and most people watching this could not name even one of them. This war keeps getting pushed off the news. So today we are slowing down to look at what is actually happening. Not just the number, but the pattern behind it, and why almost nobody explains it in plain language. 18. That is how many American soldiers have died in this war as of the last few days. And that number was 17 just last week. One more name got added after fighting broke out again. Every time this war looks like it is slowing down, it reminds everyone it is still alive. This war does not get daily front-page coverage the way older wars did. It shows up in short alerts. A base gets hit, a name gets added to a list, then the news moves on within a day. For the families of these 18 people, there is no moving on. There's only a before and an after. So how did we get here? Go back to late February. The United States and Israel launched a massive wave of airstrikes on Iran, hitting missile sites, military leaders, and parts of its nuclear program all at once. Iran's top leadership was hit hard in those opening hours. But Iran did not back down. It fired missiles and drones back at American bases across the Middle East: Kuwait, Iraq, Jordan, Saudi Arabia. Oil tankers changed routes, flights got canceled. The Strait of Hormuz, a narrow strip of water carrying a huge share of the world's oil, became one of the most dangerous shipping lanes on the planet. For months, this became a grim back and forth. Strikes, then counterstrikes. By April, the United States actually pulled back its own air campaign, not because the fighting stopped, but because it was running low on the E. Expensive defense missiles needed to keep shooting down Iranian attacks. That detail matters a lot, and we will come back to it. In June, both sides signed a ceasefire. For a few weeks, soldiers overseas finally got to sleep without waiting for an alarm. It felt like the war might be over. It was not. By mid-July, the ceasefire collapsed and the fighting came back harder than before. That is exactly when most of these 18 names were added. Soldiers who believed that danger was behind them and found out it was not. A number does not have a face. It does not have a mother waiting by the door. That is the problem with saying 18 dead and moving to the next headline. So let's meet some of the people behind it. In the first week of March, a drone attack hit a group of soldiers at a port in Kuwait called Shuaiba. 4 died together: Cody Cork, 35, from Florida; Noah Teachins, 42, from Nebraska; Nicole Amer, 39, from Minnesota; and Declan Cody, only 20, from Iowa. A day later, a 5th name from that same base was added: Jeffrey O'Brien, 45. Not every death came from a missile strike. One soldier in northern Iraq was killed while safely disposing of an unexploded Iranian drone that had already been shot down. Quiet, dangerous work that never makes it into dramatic footage. Then came the attack in mid-July, right after the ceasefire broke. At an airbase in Jordan called Muwafiq Salti, missiles got past most of the defenses. 2 soldiers died almost immediately. First Lieutenant Tyler Feehan, 25, from Hawaii, an officer with soldiers under his command, and Brit Isabella Gonzalez, only 19, from Texas, one of the youngest people in the entire army. A 3rd soldier from that same attack, Sergeant Angel Rampersad, 28, from New York, was reported missing. For days, his family did not know if he was alive. Eventually, the Pentagon confirmed their fear. He had died in the same attack. Florida, Nebraska, Minnesota, Iowa, Hawaii, Texas, New York. These 18 people came from all over the map, and none of them picked this fight themselves. Most were doing routine jobs, defending a base, supporting missions that had nothing to do with this war. A missile fired from hundreds of miles away does not care what your actual assignment was that day. So why does this keep happening? Why, after killing much of Iran's top leadership in the opening days, can Iran still reach American bases across an entire region? The answer is not about bravery or luck. It comes down to something colder: simple math. This war is not really being decided by which side is stronger. It is being decided by which side can keep paying for a longer fight. Every time an Iranian missile or drone heads toward an American base, someone has to shoot it down with an interceptor missile. Those are not cheap. A single one can cost close to $250,000. And you cannot rush order more of them the way you reorder office supplies. Iran, on the other hand, spent years building a huge stockpile of cheap missiles and drones because its planners knew they could never match American air power directly. So instead of building better weapons, they built more of them, enough to force the other side to spend far more money defending against them than it cost to fire them. That is basically the engine driving this whole war. Every night Iran launches a wave of missiles, the US has to spend huge amounts of money and limited supplies just to stop them. Eventually, the side with fancier technology can start running low on the missiles needed to keep intercepting. That is exactly what happened in April. The US scaled back its own air campaign, not because the mission was done, but because it was running low on interceptors. The war did not slow down because someone chose that. It slowed down because supply could not keep up with demand. There's an old military saying, quality without enough quantity eventually loses to quantity without much quality, if the fight goes on long enough. That sounds calm in a policy meeting. It looks very different once you realize it means a missile getting through on the one night that becomes a headline. A base in Jordan, a family in Texas that never gets their daughter back. This is why the cycle of ceasefire, collapse, and more fighting keeps repeating instead of ending cleanly. Neither side has the overwhelming advantage needed to force a surrender. The US has better technology, but a limited, expensive supply of it. Iran has a bigger, cheaper stockpile, but nowhere near the same accuracy. Neither side can fully win, but both can just barely keep surviving, at a human cost measured in names like the 18 we just talked about. So where does this lead? The honest answer is not a comfortable one. Wars like this rarely end with a clear winner. They usually end through exhaustion, when the cost of continuing outweighs the pride or pressure, keeping both sides in it. Right now, both sides still seem to have enough left to keep going. Look at what this war has done beyond the battlefield. Gulf countries spent decades building their safety plan around one idea, that hosting American bases meant American protection. This war tested that idea directly. Kuwait absorbed attacks meant for Americans. Forces. The UAE watched debris fall near a civilian airport. Saudi oil facilities came under fire. These countries are now quietly asking whether hosting US bases makes them safer or just makes them a target. That doubt does not disappear once a ceasefire is signed. Nations start hedging their bets, investing more in their own defenses. Some Gulf governments have already started talking more openly with Iran directly, not as surrender, but as basic survival planning. There's also a bigger picture most people never connect to this war. Every dollar in missile the US spends defending bases in the Middle East is a dollar in missile it does not have ready somewhere else. China and Russia are not part of this fight, and it costs them nothing to watch it play out from a distance. A rival power spending its limited supplies here has fewer supplies ready if a different crisis breaks out elsewhere. That is not a conspiracy. It is simply how competition between major powers has always worked. And underneath everything sits the original question this war was supposed to answer. Did the opening strikes in February actually stop Iran's nuclear program? Months later, with 18 Americans gone, nobody fully knows. Iran's government did not fall. Its ability to launch coordinated attacks clearly did not disappear. That uncertainty matters most to Israel, a country that has lived through months of missiles reaching its own cities, and has said clearly it sees a nuclear-armed Iran as its greatest threat. So here is where this leaves us. Another fragile ceasefire is probably still the most likely outcome eventually, simply because neither side can sustain this pace forever. But if the pattern repeats, that pause will not last either. It will just be the quiet stretch before the next base, the next Friday, the next name nobody outside one family had heard the week before. 18 is not a fixed number. It is just the count as of right now, while you are watching this. Whether it grows depends on decisions made by people who will never personally pay the price for them.